Hey everyone, it's Ben Watson here. I'm here today with an elite runner, Preston Johnson. He's the latest person to join our test pilot squad, and we're super stoked to have him. So Preston, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'm super excited to be a part of the test pilot program too. I have a big belief that, having the proper equipment is necessary to being a great runner.
Tell us about your running career. How did you get started running? Have you always loved running, or is it something that developed in your teenage years? Tell us about that.
So yeah, it's something I grew into. I was actually a soccer player. I loved playing soccer.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I would do all day long. I'd go in from school and I'd go play soccer down in the park with some friends. And so in junior high, I naturally signed up for the track team because they didn't have a soccer team. So it was something to do, something to kind of socialize and extracurricular activities. And so I ran all through junior high, and I was noticed by the Davis High School coach, Corbin Talley. And I remember him pulling me aside after a track meet saying, hey, do you want to come train with the high school team over the summer? And this was me going into my 9th grade year of school, so it would have been a freshman. And I didn't know much about it. I had friends that had siblings that were on the team up there.
Yeah.
And they were planning on doing the same thing, going and training over the summer. So I was like, you know what, might as well. And my friends are going to be there. I wouldn't be doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
So I got going, and I did my first season of cross country that fall. And at that point, I was done with soccer. I was in love.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I never even ended up trying out for the soccer team.
And so all through high school, you ran, and then you ran in college as well for Weber State.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had the opportunity to make Preston some orthotics in college. What was that? Do you remember what that was for? He had an injury at that time.
Plantar fascia issues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what about how has running been for you? Have you stayed healthy mostly over the years, or what injuries have plagued you?
I've gone through a lot of injuries. The list is long. I could go on for about a half hour, but yeah, I'll talk about a few of them. So through high school, I was mainly healthy.
Yeah.
I ended up having a great career. I qualified for the Nike Cross National Championships 3 years in high school. Ended up placing 31st my senior year.
That's
and
awesome.
Then went into the indoor season and ran the 5K at the Indoor National Championships in New York, where I took 7th place in the country.
Wow.
And so I was stoked after that.
Yeah,
I was so excited. And then at that point, I had signed with Weber State. And so I had a lot of high expectations going into college after having those results in high school.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, things don't always go as they planned. I ended up, for the most part, being injured for all 5 years in college. Seriously, the most I ever trained in a row was about 3 months. And so, I had some good results, but obviously you can't build a great athlete when you're only training 3 months and then cross-training for 3 months.
Right.
It's just not a good schedule. So, I ran really well at UNLV my freshman year, running the 10K there. Ended up getting the win in my first track race in college. And so I still had that hope inside. I was kind of okay, I still got it. I can do this.
Okay, so how old are you now, and how long ago did you graduate?
So I'm 24, and I graduated last spring, so spring of 2018.
Okay, and so what's changed since graduation? Are you healthier? You feel, because you're still absolutely in your prime. So
I've got quite a while.
So how is it? Is that changed? Are you healthier? What's happening since then?
Yeah, so actually coming out of college, I had arguably one of my worst injuries, in that I had hip surgery. I had a torn hip labrum.
Yeah.
And so they went and repaired that right after I finished my last track season with Weber State. And so most of my last summer, the 3 months after that, was all just rehab. Thankfully, the surgery went really well, and I was honestly back in the gym 7 days after the surgery.
Wow.
And doing upper body lifting, and then trying to keep my cardio up by doing a hand cycle type cardio workout. And then progressed from there. And I would say since the middle of October, I've been running pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Bumping my mileage up. I've been averaging right around 90 to 100 at that point.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you've been plagued by injuries then, but yet you have a positive attitude. How have you been able to maintain that positive attitude throughout those injuries?
I think it's just the belief in my ability and the hard work that I put in. I never feel like, when I get hurt, it's not okay, I'm hurt, I'm going to be sitting off relaxing. It's going to be, you know, what can I do to make sure that when I come back from this injury, I'm going to be as fit as I possibly can. So, you know, obviously you got to take care of the injury. You don't want to aggravate it any more than it already is. And so I kind of tweak my workout. So, you know, maybe if it's one thing, I'll pool run or swim laps, or if it's another thing, I'll be on the elliptical or on a bike. And, you know, I'll be cross-training for 2, 3, 4 hours a day when I'm taking my time off.
Right.
So
it almost makes it harder.
Yeah, it is harder. I mean,
Yeah.
especially mentally, going in and standing on an elliptical for an hour and a half.
What advice do you have for runners?
I would say my piece of advice would be is to not only have a love for running, but have a love for fitness. Because when running's gone, I mean, people lose their motivation because, like, oh, I can't run. I don't really care about the other stuff. But for me, in school, I studied exercise science. And so I have this background in knowing how important being healthy is and being active is. And so I just have a genuine love for just being active. And so it's a matter of, for other people when they get injured, finding that thing that they love outside of running that's going to keep them active, keep them moving, and call that your cross training. I mean, if you love hiking, go out for a hike. If you love going for a bike ride, you know, go biking. And just kind of expanding your hobbies and things that you do. And it'll come back and obviously help you in the long run with running too, by keeping you strong and preventing that atrophy that happens when you're injured and not training.
Yeah, totally. So what's next? What are the goals coming up for this summer?
Yeah.
And I guess healthy is number one.
Yes,
right?
That's always number one in my heart, because I feel like if I can stay healthy for a consistent amount of time, you know, the sky's the limit on my running. Yeah.
And if I could just help a little by providing a little bit of a stable foundation there and do that component, that's gonna be a small little piece of the puzzle, but it could be helpful. And
for all we know, it could be a big part of it.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Tell me about what's coming up.
Yeah, so for this coming year, my goal is obviously to start building up my base, get a lot of mileage in. Ultimately, my long-term goal in the next year or two is to qualify for the Olympic Trials Marathon in Atlanta, Georgia next March. So to do that, you have to run under 2:19 in the marathon or under 1:04 in the half marathon. And so I'm planning on going for that this next fall. Probably, I'm still deciding between Chicago and the CIM Marathon in California.
Cool.
But in the meantime, training is going to be my main focus with some races here and there. So I'm going to be doing the USATF Utah Racing Circuit. And then I'll probably hit up the Utah Valley Marathon is my tentative plan right now in the spring, just to kind of get one under my belt. In college, you never really race marathons. It's all shorter stuff. Yeah. So I feel like if I can feasibly plan to run 2:18, 2:17 in the fall, I need to have one under my belt to get, you know, feel it for myself, because everyone talks about the pain of a marathon, but you don't know it until you run it yourself. Yeah. So
what about the half? What made you decide the marathon versus just doing the half?
You know, I think I'll throw in a few halves. They just barely lowered the qualifying time for the half down a minute, so it used to be 1:05.
Got it.
And so this last year they dropped down to 1:04, which in my mind, obviously a minute when you're going that fast is ridiculously hard to take off.
Yeah.
And last I heard, there was like people that hadn't qualified in the marathon already for the Olympic trials that were going for the half marathon. There was only like 4 of them that had gotten it.
Got it.
And so
very, very
in my mind, it's a lot harder standard
Yeah.
as opposed to the 2:19.
Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing some of that with us, and I'm really excited to see if I can help you with your journey on this thing.
Yeah,
thank you
I'm
so
really
much.
excited to work with you too.
Yeah,
I'm really optimistic about the different things you can help me with and the success that is hopefully ahead.
Cool.
So,
All right, everyone. Have a great day.